Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another season and edition of Upon Further Review alongside Eric Doot Dutkewicz. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith. We welcome you here to the 2025 preview as we get ready to start our 2025 season here on Friday night, and we'll have more about that later on. We want to thank you for joining us, whether it's via YouTube or X, or if you're listening to us with 1380 The Fan. We appreciate your patronage. And dude, here we go once again to 2025, and it's hard to believe that the summer has come and gone, and we're now in the saddle again for another year.
Yeah, good evening to you, and good evening to all of our listeners and viewers out there. Yes, the summer has flown by because here we are, and it's like, I haven't talked to you all summer, it feels like, until the last couple of weeks, as we start to get ready. But yeah, here we are again. I think, it's kind of the same song and dance we do every summer. Well, summer's over. Summers are getting shorter for schools. They've added moratorium weeks and days, and so the schedules are all different. But great to be back in the saddle for Upon Further Review another year. I believe this is year 3 for us.
I think so. I was trying to think about that today. Third year.
So it's exciting to be back with you, Coach. And, I was just thinking back today, back in November, when the state finals happened. We had a state champion in Adams Central. We had 2 state runners up in Bishop Luers and East Noble. And we thought then, well, it won't be long before we're back at it. And here's the long before we're back at it just a few months later.
Yeah, and it does fly by, especially when you get older. But tonight, just kind of cue you in on what we're wanting to accomplish here. First and foremost, we'll go through the Summit Athletic Conference and the ACAC as well as NE8. For the most part, we may not get to hit on every school due to time constraints and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, we hope that we can cover some of the top tier teams in and around the Northeast Indiana area. And with the Summit Athletic Conference, a year that's going to be a kind of an adjustment year when you think about all the talent that was lost in the Summit Athletic Conference. It was a ton of talent had graduated. No one better than, Jimmy Sullivan at Carroll, who we were able to watch for the last 3 years as well. And I guess that's going to be the key component to it. It's probably going to be a more youthful movement more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jimmy Sullivan, Brandon Logan, a lot of different guys that I think Landon Fry comes to mind, Sam Stewart at Homestead. So a lot of jump off the page guys from the class of 2025 who have graduated. And now this year, maybe not as big of a pool of guys that, just right away you think of. But I think the class of 2026 will be good and even other classes. And I think it also gives an opportunity for so many kids to showcase that by the end of the season, we will be hearing their names a lot. I mean, we mentioned Jimmy Sullivan. We mentioned Brandon Logan. I remember that sophomore year into his junior year for Brandon Logan, the freshman into the sophomore year for Jimmy Sullivan, where these guys come alive. And now we're seeing it with some of the other players. You think Guilford over at Quay Guilford over at Northrop, who had a breakout year for him himself, and just so many other players that in the area and the coverage that, not only here on Upon for the Review, but so many of the media outlets out there. It's so great for the Fort Wayne area that by season's end, it'll be really fun to see who is some of the new names that we hear about throughout this football season.
Yeah, Guilford is the Ohio State commitment that he just made here a couple of weeks ago, and things have changed at that level now with profit sharing and, the different collectives that now can pay the student athletes, and he will be one of among many that will go through this year and graduate and move on to Ohio State, where he will benefit from being a part of a Power 5 program, or P4 program, I should say now, and be able to collect some of the riches of that we see these young men getting to ball in now. It doesn't seem possible, but that is kind of the nature of the business as we speak today. But, let's kind of move our way into this SAC class right now and talk about this season as a whole. I think when we were at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony / media day, one of the words that seemed to come on repeat by the coaches was offensive line and how strong their offensive line were going to be. And that seemed to be the key word of the day for almost all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking to those guys and first of all, what a great setup that was. New changes for high school football media day out at Parkview Miro Center. But along with that, the Indiana Football Hall of Fame for the Region 3 of the Indiana Football Coaches Association. And so we got that opportunity upon further review to talk to some of them. But yes, I mean, guys like Jason Garrett, coaches like Ben Johnson and Doug Dinan at Carroll, Kurt Tittman at Snyder. The common theme was the offensive line. And generally, and Coach, you've been around the block and you probably can explain this to our listeners and viewers, why football kind of starts at that position in a lot of ways anyway. I mean, the skill position get a lot of the pub, and you may not know who the offensive tackle is at Homestead, but at the end of the day, those guys tend to be a lot of the bread and butter for how to get the offense going, whether it's that spread pass offense that we see at Carroll or that power eye, running out of the backfield, even, that we see at Snyder and other places, to that, wishbone at Warsaw and Adams Central that they all run. Such an important position, that offensive line. But a lot of those coaches were talking to us about it at media day.
Yeah, all of them had really mentioned being their strength of the team, which probably last year maybe wasn't quite as known throughout the Summit Athletic Conference. Carroll had a pretty good offensive line, as did Bishop DeWanger, probably the two strongest. And when you talk the Summit Athletic Conference, and as we get going into that breakdown per se, I guess you might as well start at the top talking about the Snyder Panthers and what they potentially got coming back, and both the Carroll, because those are the two top dogs that have been at the top of the heap over the last few years. And we talked about not having Jimmy Sullivan back into the Carroll backfield this year. But, you got to be excited for a kid like Van Pelt, who was returning. He was a really good player. And then some of the other linebacker, Newhouser, remember him? He started as a true freshman, I believe. But, even though they lose their best talent in Jimmy Sullivan, that doesn't mean they don't have talent coming in behind them. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's, for one, when you're talking Carroll, and really the entire SAC, when you look at it from a 30,000 foot view, the way that the conference is set up with the divisions, the A division and B division, commonly referred to big and small, though there is some, looking at that, it's not always necessarily big and small. But anyway, A and B. But if you look at, Carroll, Snyder, even to the Dwanger, like the development over time and just the size. Like, I mean, we've had Coach Dinan from Carroll on a couple times over the years, and just, I always tell people he mentioned it, like 165 guys in the program, is probably around that again this year. So they just got so many kids coming out, and then as they build up the success, it goes through the middle school, it goes through their youth football program, it goes all the way through, and so and so that's a big thing for them, and that's where a lot of that comes from too. But yes, I mean, when you lose somebody like Jimmy Sullivan to graduation, who's going to go play at Iowa, you look at somebody like Caden Abs, an offensive lineman, Brady Road, a MAC tight end now playing at Western Michigan, and just so many different guys that have come out of that places. you go, man, it's going to be tough. But then you do look what's coming back because they've been able to build that program over time. And the offensive lineman and Andrew Rudolph is back. Mason Bauman from a defensive lineman. You mentioned Newhouser and Evan Brubaker, just some names that pop out to me. But I think that's the other side of the coin too, is I think because, and we'll find kids as time goes on in the quarterback play, and there'll be guys that we mentioned, but I think too, I think we're going to see a lot of defense of standouts this year too. I think this might be a great year for some defense to kind of take some of the notable names, at least in the SAC, as things bear out.
Yeah, and what Doug has been able to do in his 16th year at Carroll has been pretty phenomenal when you think about a school that has gradually grown throughout the years and into a pretty dominant foe in the Summit Athletic Conference. And like you said, they're going to have a pretty good defensive line coming back, and Newhouser, the linebacker, Brubaker, you talked about the D-line. I look for them. Once they settle in on a quarterback, I think we'll see them, get back to the old style of what they like to do offense and defensively. But when you have a Van Pelt and some other ones that we know they have, we may just not know about them right now. They will still have a skill-laden team that will be able to compete in the Summit Athletic Conference. And, kind of leads into our next biggie with Snyder. Snyder's one of those schools again that I just think they have a tendency to reload in some respects. They had some struggles there a year ago or so. But last year rebounded 8-3. Now you had mentioned this earlier, losing a player like Logan, you're not going to replace him, or Landon Fry at linebacker. Those were key guys on that side of the football, but their backfield may be some of the best in the not only Northeast Indiana, but the entire state of Indiana, with Jordan Davis and a Burton, who's a sophomore. And I believe the other one's Buchanan. Those three kids, man, that's going to be some tough running backs to go up against, and an offensive line that Coach Tippmann told us was probably one of the better ones he's had in a long while.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about bread and butter. That is what Snyder football, generation to generation is built on, is that power running game, the ability. And it's, first of all, it's nice to have 2, maybe 3 guys in that you can kind of share that load, and then just kind of see, who comes out of that pack as kind of the leading rusher. But also too, it helps in that quarterback transition. Aaron Vance graduates. He's going to go run track at Indiana Wesleyan next year. We saw that, there were some struggles, so to speak, early for him. But I think that running game of Snyder a year ago with Davis and Burton, and just that ability to kind of settle things down, get caught. I mean, that East Noble game, a tale of 2 different games, really, because then it allowed Aaron Vance to get running too. So I think, that will be a big question, establishing the run early, especially behind that offensive line, to help develop some of those guys as time goes on. Sawyer Tippmann on that offensive line, Kurt Tippmann's son, getting the number 1 jersey this year. So one of the cool traditions here, in Northeast Indiana and at Snyder High School, they vote on who will wear the number 1 jersey. Brandon Logan had it a year ago. Now it moves on to Sawyer Tippmann. 2 completely different guys, 2 different completely positions. But I think it's a showcase of what, who that team is led by. And I think that's pretty cool there. But yeah, Snyder, 8-3 a year ago. They lost twice to Carroll, once in the regular season and then in the sectional semifinal, coming out of that state championship. So they lose a lot on the defensive side. But I think they're going to continue to be able to reload. And, special teams, Meng Tung is back. We see what he's been able to do. And I think there again, I really like Owen Dodson, who's Ethan's brother, a tight end who just committed to Grand Valley State. Who, there again, there's a kid that I expect big things from him this year, that we're going to hear his name a lot that we haven't heard maybe in the last couple of years, but I think that'll be good too. A big blocking tight end on top of it. So yeah, Snyder, poised as usual to be in that conversation. And I think, that's where the SAC is led is these two teams all together both years. Just, and now, Snyder and Carroll both in Class 6A, Coach.
Right.
Carroll ranked out, both of these teams, others receiving votes, but Carroll basically shapes up to number 17 in Class 6A, and then Snyder comes in at number 12. So, that's that game, by the way, Snyder and Carroll at Snyder this year. But the Panthers have to go on the road against Lures and at Homestead and at Dwenger and at Northside. And then whereas Carroll, they've got Dwenger and Homestead and Lures at home this year. So, and we'll get into it a little bit too while it's fresh in my mind. This is also too, Coach, the first year, or not the first year, but basically, the first year of a new change, where the schedule has kind of changed. So, Snyder and Lures are finally going to play again for the first time in a couple of years,
right? Because
of the A and B division and the crossover games. So not everybody plays each other, and so they kind of go in the same rotation. So the rotation after the 2 years is now up. It's a new group of teams that are coming in from the crossover. So that's going to be cool to see Snyder and Lures again, and some of the other crossover games that we'll see that we haven't seen in a couple of years since they implemented this new division format.
Yeah, and I think also with Snyder, depending on who their quarterback ends up being, it will, I think both of them may be juniors that are competing for the starting spot, if I remember correctly. If they can get their run game going, that's going to get their passing game, because you mentioned Owens already. And Snyder likes to run the play action passing type of game where they get the ball to the tight end as much as possible. And last year, they just didn't do that enough. And I think if they can get back to what they like to do, running the ball and using play action off of it, that's when a kid like Owens pops into everybody's mindset, because he's a big target and he can catch the football. So that's what makes Snyder ultimately dangerous offensively, is the fact that they do have a way to complement the run with the pass. And when they've done that effectively, they usually have had pretty good offensive teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And there again, the offensive line that comes into play there, and just the big up front, and that's what you need. And so, Carroll and Snyder, probably kind of that class leading the way, but, not too far behind them, Coach, I got to say, or at least in the conversation, and you can take it a couple different ways, but I think you look at Bishop Dwenger, in that A division and trying to kind of get things back on track. Last year, they were a second straight 6-6 season, but ultimately too, they were, they return a lot, getting some names back, and they're a top 10 team in Class 4A to start the season. And I think, for them, that's going to be a big one, just to kind of see where they come back to. They lose to East Noble in the sectional championship a year ago, but they showed some flashes there towards the latter half of the year and what they were able to do, and won 3 of their last 4 games down the stretch. What the issue was for Dwenger was the scoring. They only averaged 18 points a game, 19 points on defense. So the defense got it done. But, this is a Dwenger team, hasn't won a sectional since 2021. I think they're hungry to get back as a number 8 team in Class 4A. Of course, that loaded sectional that they're a part of as well.
Yeah, part of their problem over the last couple of years has been injury, especially at quarterback. Henry Jordan got hurt last year early on, and that did not help them as an offense. But, he's back and healthy, and he's a very capable quarterback to lead that program. And with the upfront powers to be with their offensive line, and of course the Tittman in the backfield, what else can you do but get Bishop Dwenger's running game and passing game on track. They, to me, are kind of the dark horse of the entire Summit Athletic Conference, because they've kind of been hanging in the background, and they've had some things that have happened to them in the injury department that have really handcuffed them. But if their defense can be as good as it was a year ago and their offense can mature, then I do think they got a team that could cause some problems with, the Carrolls and Snyders of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Henry Jordan coming back, the play caller, and just the running back. We had AJ Shefferly on the show last year. And don't forget a lot of two-way players, including, I think, maybe the best offensive or in lineman in general in the area, one of the tops. I'd have to say Andrew Traheen from Dwenger in there too, a big kid that, they're again up front, battle of the trenches. Jason Garrett seemed to be really happy with his offensive line too. So I think a lot of it, we may see a lot more of that 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of stuff in the SAC this year. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of, I say that now, and then by week 3, we see a 53-48 shootout like we did last year between Northrop and New Haven. But ultimately, I think, that's where the games are going to be won in the trenches. And I think part of it is we got some really good kids at those positions there. But Tippmann's all over the place. Again, for the Bishop Dwenger Saints, I didn't get the final tally on how many, but plus they're all related to, even if they don't have the Tippmann name.
Yeah, I can tell you how many there are, because the other day I watched the thing that the New York Jets do, which they call Origins Story, and they featured Joe Tippmann on. It's on YouTube if people want to look it up, and I would encourage you to do so. Joe Tippmann, who we've covered through his playing years here, but Coach Garrett said that about a third of his rosters are usually made up of Tippmann. So there you go, a third. So out of 120 kids, you can expect about a third of them to be Tippmann. So
and it's a mix too, because like I said, some of them have the Tippmann name, but others are like, their moms were Tippmann. So, when they married, the name changed, but anyway, so really cool. And another name that, just doing some research that, it'd be interesting to see how this all pans out, because I think it's going to be somebody that, especially in that backfield, is Jordan Fabini. And we know the Fabini name as well, Jason's son, a junior, running back and I think linebacker as well for the Dwenger Saints. So a lot of two-way players, and I think that goes.
Tippmann.
he's a Tippmann on the yes, that's true. That's what
you were saying.
Prime example. So so I think ultimately, we talk about the two-way players, and I think we see that a lot from Dwenger. That's what from the big school side of things, a 4A school in the A division up against the Snyder, up against the Carroll, up against a Homestead. That's where it gets to be a key. And so, if Dwenger can stay healthy, and we certainly, wish health for everybody, good health all season long. But I think, that becomes, when you have a lot of two-way players, the importance of that. But a lot of talent on that Dwenger Saints team. And I think they're looking to get, second straight 6-6 season, second straight sectional final that they advanced to, lost to East Noble in that, but a little bit of momentum to close the year. And I think that bodes well, especially I think too, knowing who their quarterback's going to be coming into week 1.
Yeah, no question. And when you talk about the rest of the Summit Athletic Conference, Northside is another team that gets into that mix of being a team that could also be one of those teams that surprises you with some of the talent that they have, with some kids returning from that team as well. And, Malik Moore being one of them, a talented kid as well, and potentially some transfers coming in. But that would say to me that, that A division is going to be pretty tough.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's where, really, when you think about it too, the fact that we're 0-0 and this Friday is week 1 and all of that, like, a lot of people have hope this time of year and start off great. And I think, not just Malik Moore, but Caleb Kingley, a guy that rushed for 11 touchdowns and over 700 yards a year ago. Jaden Rivers looks to be the new quarterback over there from Northside. He's the one. He's transferred in from Warren Central. I know he was playing in that in the scrimmage last Friday night. So that's a new wrinkle. That's going to be interesting to see how that all because somebody that is transferred in from Warren Central going to Northside. And so that'll be interesting to see as well. So, they've got a lot of talent at Northside, and just always trying to put it together and have a good season. And the opportunity is there again for that. And that's going to be another story all year long. Is kind of, you talk about new names popping up from the Indy area that are coming up to schools here in Northeast Indiana. We do now have the transfer rule in Indiana. I did see a Journal Gazette report earlier this week that it's not as big in Fort Wayne as some of the other places in the state, but I think there have been some players on the move for one reason or another. That is now allowed a little bit more so with the free transfer rule in IHSAA. And, so that's going to be a part of it too. So there might be some times where we see kids or wait a minute, weren't they on this particular team last year or 2 years ago? Or, wow, I've never heard of this kid before, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But Northside, another team that trying to get back into things and trying to do what they did, 5-5 a year ago. And there again, some good opportunities for them. They host Wayne, they host Snyder this year. They go to Lures and Homestead. And of course, Northside being in that B division, they play the other schools in the B division for sure. And then a couple crossover games. And so, just that schedule kind of looks interesting for people as well sometimes.
Yeah, and I misspoke there. Dwenger and Northside are both in the B division, and two teams that should be near the top of that.
Dwenger's in A.
Dwenger is in A. Okay.
Lures is in B.
Gotcha. I had
and
it
then
all
Northrop's in A. And
gotcha.
I will go on the record and say I think Northrop should be in B, even though they're the biggest school but Fort Wayne Community Schools and all that. But with a 6A school and enrollment, I think if you switch Northrop and Lures, that would be great. But that's probably, we'll have that conversation at another time for sure. And who knows, Northrop, and we can talk about Northrop right now. I mean, Northrop, the guys that they have, we mentioned Quay Goldford earlier in the show. Maddox Whale, I believe, or Wheel, we'll get a pronouncer on this year. A guy that's got offers from like Penn State. So, you got Quay that's committed to Ohio State. You got potentially another Big Ten or high Division I recruit on the other side for Northrop. David Callison back as quarterback for the Northrop Bruins. So, I think for them, this is that time of year where it's like, hey, it's a new year, it's clean slate. See what we got. They started off pretty decent a year ago, and then it kind of fizzled out. But here they are back again, and so it'll be really interesting to see what becomes of those Northrop Bruins. 2-8 was what they finished a year ago, and 41 points on defense given up. I was going to say that's the key. Because
that's the Achilles heel.
With all those, they still only average less than 20 points a game. Now again, Northrop is going to play Snyder and Carroll and Homestead and Dwenger guaranteed. And that I think in and of itself is the biggest issue for Northrop, because they would really benefit from playing Concordia every year, Southside every year, and then mixing it up from there. But nevertheless, it's a new year for the Northrop Bruins. They've got some talent and continue to do so over there. And hopefully for them, they can for their hopes that they can get back things on track a little bit and try to improve. 2 years of 1-9, 2-8 a year ago. Maybe they take a next step. Can they double it again? Get 4 wins this year? Well, we'll have to see from the Northrop Bruins. Homestead, another team, Coach.
Yes, that was the other one.
Mix. They took their lumps a year ago with a 5-5 back-to-back years of 5-5. In fact, for those Homestead Spartans. But I think there he is in the graphic right there for those watching the Upon Further Review videocast. Michael White back at quarterback, a dynamic player. We've seen him a number of times when we've been out at Dave Walters Stadium. He's back leading the show and got some players on the outside. Evan England is a wide receiver. And there again, the opportunity for them, part of it is the schedule. They're going to play Westfield and Noblesville as their two non-conference games. So number 2 and number 8. And they're also in that sectional with Noblesville. So they're the odd man out in Class 6A that, you have Snyder and Northrop and Carroll, and then like Elkhart comes in. But then Homestead has got to go down to Central Indiana and Noblesville in that group. So not Zionsville and Westfield. So anyway, but here's the other thing for Homestead. 3 straight road games to start the season. Westfield, Noblesville, and then at Southside to open up SAC play. So their first home game, Coach, September 12th at Northrop. I tell you, those Spartan fans love their football. They're going to be ready to see the Homestead football team come week 4 when they finally get a home game out there at Homestead.
Yeah, plus all the updates and things that are continuing on at Homestead. But, this year for Homestead, it comes down to Michael White is going to be a 30-year starter at quarterback. Is he going to have the improvement needed from years 1, 2, and now to year 3 to be that difference maker for Homestead at quarterback? He's got a lot of talent. He's got a decent arm. His biggest, thing there has been protection, quite honestly. He, that's the one thing. Has Homestead improved up front enough that it will give a kid like this White kid enough time to get back in the pocket and throw it around a little bit, because he will have some guys on the outside like you had mentioned. So if they can do that, I look for Homestead to have a say as well in who may end up winning the Summit Athletic Conference for 2025.
Yeah, Michael White, just looking at his stats last year as a junior, 1,400 yards through the air, 62% completions with 159 yards, just under 160 per game. Running wise, another 35. So he is a dual threat, far more throwing the ball still, but I think, another year older for him. And it'll be interesting to see, and just, getting in the weight room. We talked with Chad Zolman, and just, the importance again of all these teams and all these groups and all these guys getting in the weight room all season long. And football, as you know, Coach, has become a year-round sport and preparation. I mean, week 1 of football is here from a game standpoint, but really from Homestead to East Noble to Snyder to Adams Central on down, week 1 really started probably, that week after Thanksgiving when the state finals were over in some capacity.
Well, yeah, those that weren't involved in a winter sport, I'm sure were in the weight room lifting, and then it kind of switches if those guys that are not involved in a spring sport, but even the guys that are playing a sport throughout their school year are getting some form of lift in to better themselves on the field of play. And it'll just be a chance for them again to prevent injuries with lifting and doing things that they've done for year round to prepare for what happens on Friday night with the start of the season. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got more to discuss with the NE8 and ACAC right after this on Upon Further Review. Welcome back here to Upon Further Review alongside Eric Dutkewicz. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith. Just finished up with the Summit Athletic Conference there, kind of giving you a general idea of who to expect back in and around those programs in 2025. A lot of parity, again, I believe, but, another conference that we have a tendency to cover, and we are going to probably cover one of their teams week 1. That is the Northeast 8 conference with the likes of Leo and East Noble and Columbia City. And, East Noble is a team that I really think is primed to do something better this year again, because, they got Biddle back at quarterback, and he is a really good leader on the field offensively and defensively for him. He kind of does it all, but he is a talented young man. And then not to mention that the big fellas up front, like a Hunter Shire, for their offensive line, probably one of the bigger offensive line in the NE8.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, East Noble state runners up a year ago. And they're, again, a bigger 4A school, if you will, and obviously a one high school district up in Kendallville. Alex Stewart comes in, first year head coach. Luke Amstutz moves on to the activities and athletic director role there at East Noble. And but they picked up from where they left off. And when you have guys like Riley Biddle and Dylan Crail in the backfield, Dallas Plattner, another name that comes to mind, Jordan Borders, so many of those guys. They had a big signing day up there earlier this year. A lot of that group is going to play college football somewhere, and that's pretty good, a feather in the cap for that East Noble Knights program. But also, too, so many guys that are coming back, and the ability. I think it does start with their quarterback and Riley Biddle, who also plays on the defensive side of the ball, pretty good defensive back and safety as well. So, I think for East Noble, they come in as number 3 in Class 4A.
And that's a legitimate ranking.
And, from the Coaches Association, the AP media poll hasn't started yet, but the preseason coaches poll, these rankings that we talk about tonight, to this point will be from that poll. But, 13-2 a year ago, 4A state runner-up. They win the NE8 championship outright at 7-0. And back-to-back shares as well, too. The important thing for them, there again, you look at those numbers, 37 points a game, and then for offense, and then on defense, 13 giving up. So they were keyed in on both sides, and that made for a really successful year. We had Coach East Noble at the PSM 7-on-7 shootout. They win the Surge Division championship, and it was really, like I said, they were clicking already. I know it's a 7-on-7 and it's not line play and all that stuff, but to watch Riley Biddle out there, Alex Scott, another one, and another name, a freshman coming in, and I'm going to put it out here now, Austin Phillips from East Noble, freshman, played running back, probably going to play some linebacker too, a name to watch. He is I believe it's the discus national champion in 8th grade at AAU's. National. So there you go. There's a plug for him. But I was very impressed by watching him out of the 7-on-7. So that's a name to get to know this year too. As a freshman, he's going to be getting a lot there. But yeah, this East Noble team primed to be one of the top contenders in the NE8, but a lot of good teams in the NE8 as well.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Riley Biddle may be the best returning quarterback that is in Northeast Indiana, including the Summit Athletic Conference, even though we've got some guys coming back that maybe were dinged up a year ago. But we were impressed with them last year when they played Snyder. And fortunately, that was the Lightning game that ultimately forced them to come back the next morning and play. And unfortunately for them, they would have been better keeping on playing, because for the better part of that game, they had a control over it. But definitely think there's big things to come from East Noble again this year. But you can bet that right down the road from East Noble, a few miles, is Leo, waiting to reclaim some of their glory there in the NE8. Of course, they lose a big name, Brock Schott, from a year ago. But, right now, Leo is going to be another team that I think, with Nathan Foster coming back, is going to be a pretty good running back that may be able to be one of the better ones in Northeast Indiana. And, of course, right now they got a quarterback duel there between Titus Stoller and Luke Marquardt. Both of them are vying for some the starting position as we speak, but you got Tackwell, a receiver, and Holbert, another receiver. So offensively speaking, a pretty good group of athletes returning, even though they lost somebody like Brock Schott and Logan Hepner.
Landon Hepner.
Landon Hepner.
Yeah. And, Grayson Esguerra out, as it turns out too, like I said, found this out in the last couple of days. Grayson Esguerra now at Carroll for his senior season. So we talk about the transfers. There's our first, specific mention of one there with outside of the young man from Warren Central coming up, the quarterback for Northside. But yeah, Esguerra moving over to Carroll. That'll be interesting to see how that pans out too. But yeah, Nate Foster, he's there as a running back. You're not going to replace Hurricane Brock. I mean, you're going to put somebody in his position. Landon Hepner was just that all over the field kind of guy on all three phases, and offense, defense, and special teams. But I think realistically, that's what, Leo has been able to grow into is developing players over time, finding really diamond in the rough type players and making something of them. So it should be fun to see what this Leo team that comes in, again, number 12 and 4A in the coaches poll. That's, others receiving votes outside of the top 10, 8-3. They got shut out by East Noble in the sectional semifinal. We were there for the 1380 game of the week that night. Their defense only giving up 15 points last year, and their offense 33. And I felt at times there was a lot of times that they probably were leaving a lot out there offensively with the weapons that they have. So it should be interesting as Jason Dorfer comes back for his fourth season at Leo. Hard to believe it's already his fourth year. So he's kind of seen one graduating class go through and implementing what he's been able to do. And I think, Nate Foster is the running back. He's going to, really be kind of the start of that. But yeah, they're going to have some great playmakers all over the field. And then their defensive side of the ball, they've always got names that will come out and do well. And I think that's what's going to be interesting as we're going to see them early and just to see how things pan out for them as we go into week one against Bishop Lures in a cool out of conference matchup.
That's our 1380. The fan game of the week is Bishop Lures at Leo. We will have our normal Parkview Sports Medicine pregame show at 6:00 with Doot, Jim Scovelin, and myself, all there to give you the lowdown prior to the game. But you talked about defense there, just some names to give out. You have Isaiah Coleman back. Hayden Roberts is also back, and Brett Souter, who led the team in tackles last year with 65 total. So a good nucleus coming back, but we might as well just keep rolling because you go from Leo all the way over to where I'm at up around Highway 9, and you got the Columbia City Eagles returning this year. And again, they lose a Stratton Fuller to the Army Academy along with Landon Hepner. But I do think there's another team that is going to benefit from some of the young talent that played with last year into this year. And I think I saw a couple reports from their scrimmage the other night. It was a very impressive night all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're, again, a team that, started off strong and was a really good team. They had that huge win over Leo that, still controversial or not so controversial, depending on who you talk to this summer. Right. But, that was a big win. And Stratton Fuller was such a big part of that. But not only that, Grayson Bradbury at quarterback, who's going to play baseball at Butler. And they had so many key weapons on those teams and things like that. And so, now just coming back and being able, especially that sting of a 38-0 shutout at the sectional first round. I mean, that's, the bottom kind of fell out for them in that postseason game. And so knowing that team and just the way they kind of think, I'm sure they've been cognizant of that all off season. And so, they're going to look to get back because they realize, and it's kind of that same thing every year for the most part. the NE8 kind of runs through either Kendallville or Leo Cedarville or through Columbia City, and you throw in a New Haven in there, or Huntington North has shown some promise in the last year or so. So for Columbia City, though, looking at their schedule, I circled it. They host East Noble, and then they're at Leo in back-to-back weeks to start October. So that is going to be a huge part of the schedule for them, because we've seen it a lot where maybe they start, that 5-0, and then it's like by the end of the year, maybe they're a 6-6 team. And so trying to, salvage it. And, look, they were, 8-2 a year ago. So, they had a great run for it. So, and it just all came apart in the sectional against Wenger. So they'll be back, and like they're again a good team to watch. Always exciting offense to watch, and it should be another good year to keep our eye on those Columbia City Eagles.
Yeah, and up front they've got Carson Carpenter back, Carson Henry is back, and a junior, Caden Bonestead, I believe is how you pronounce that. But Gab McDivitt is back at quarterback. He'll be a junior. And then, of course, their big stud at wide receiver, probably taking over the shoes that Stratton Fuller left, is Gavin Smith. Yeah. And then, of course, a nice running back in Trace Parrish, who had 503 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. So it's definitely a team that's got some people coming back, including Braden Elkins is another one as a possible big problem on the perimeter for the NE8. And, look, it's one of those things, like you said, you get to October in the NE8, and that's when the season really starts taking shape, no matter who is in the lead or not, because that's usually when the Leos and East Nobles and Columbia Cities all start playing each other. And outside of them, we have Huntington North and New Haven and Norwell, who kind of are in that mix. But last year, Huntington North went on a great run. Remember, they're in the tourney and really showed what they could do. Now, they know they graduated several of those players. It'll be interesting to see who they've got coming back and who they got out of the hallways to join them based upon the success they've had there, because that's the one thing that they've been able to do here lately is start building upon success at Huntington North, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. A team, Huntington North gets to this. They win the sectional championship, first time since 1993, on a field goal from a foreign exchange student from Germany. Right. I went down there and tracked down that story for PSM. A wonderful story. Johann, his name, back in Germany now, but spins, somehow gets connected. A short story. Gets connected to a family here, I think through some church and some exchange program. He lives here for the year, says, primarily a soccer player back in Germany, says, I'll go out and kick, try field goals for the football team, makes the team, hits a field goal to win a sectional championship for the first time in 31 years. Yeah, that's the math. And so, it was a cool season for them. They get to the regional. Of course, they played they played East Noble in that regional. We were there again for that. And, it was close early. They hung around for that first half before East Noble kind of broke it open. But a lot to be proud of from Huntington North, what they were able to do. And with head coach Mike Eschbach. And, that's the question for Huntington North. You have that great year, that standout year, kind of like you did in 93. How do you use the momentum from what you were able to do? The Linker, I think one graduated. They're Linker brothers. One of the Linker brothers is back. He's a dynamic player. And so it should, I think they've got some good pieces. And like you mentioned, when a place like Huntington North finds success in football, suddenly some more kids may come out that have never played before, because you just don't see what happened in Huntington last year happen all that much.
That's right.
Well, so good luck to them as well.
Yeah, that's the NE8 to date. And if anybody's interested, the Blitz has the Columbia City Eagles as their number 8 team in his power poll. So there you go. But moving on now into our last conference of the evening, the ACAC, a conference that has been let's just call a fact. Adams Central has won the conference now for about the last 3 or 4 years in a row, and they cultivated that with down to the championship last year of 2A, and now we're back in Adams Central. I think just reloads. I don't know if you call it retool, but I think they're going to be loading on offense because they got 7 of their starters back on offense, including Jamison Roach, their quarterback, who is another really fine athlete in Northeast Indiana, and 4 of their 5 offensive linemen back. So Adams Central offensively is going to be dangerous game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 1 in Class 2A is your Adams Central team this year. I had them on the list here, find their stats. But yeah. So, they were the state champions a year ago, marched down to Lucas Oil, 4th straight. That's the number for the Allen County Athletic Conference, which has become the Adams Central Athletic Conference, as our friend Brett Rump would say. But realistically, they are the team again. I think it starts with them and what they're able to do. You mentioned all those guys returning. And, just that style of offense, that wishbone style, that is really hard to get. And they've just mastered it down there. And we talked to Max Kerr and Riley, or not Riley, Jamison Roach last year. And
right, Jamison.
Just those different wrinkles. And, not with a guy like Roach, a fine quarterback who was a sophomore, I think now a junior, developing in his system in that way and a lot of running the ball. But he's such an athletic and dynamic player that really that adds a whole nother wrinkle to that Flying Jets offense that should be really fun to see. But yeah, those guys are the bring your lunch pail kind of work guys and on both sides of the ball. Most of those guys play both ways. Just really good athletes. A lot of them go wrestle and track and shot put and discus. And so it should be, I think it probably starts there for Adams Central. But I think you also have those other teams that they're again pop up again. I think of a team like Bluffton, a top 10 team in Class 2A, same sectional, same conference. And then South Adams, which, South Adams has what they were able to do last year, after starting 3-5 in the regular season, they go on and win a regional and finish 8-6. So a lot of momentum for them going into the postseason. They're number 6 in the 1A poll coming into this season. So I think, Adams Central is the class of the field for sure. They've been that way, but I think it is that usual suspect scenario, Coach, of Bluffton, South Adams, and even like a Heritage trying to knock on that door.
Yeah, Heritage is going to have some pieces to replace, and South Adams, you can never count them out with what they do offensively because they've done it well with throwing the football. But Adams State Central has their leading receiver back, tight end Braylon Raber is back. He had 500 yards. So when you have 7 out of your 11 back on offense, that just right there makes me scared because
in a 1A school too.
In a 1A school just says a lot. And then when you add to it, like you said, Bluffton has always been there knocking at the door of late and played, Lures. I believe it was either last year or 2 years ago, and played them tough up in here during the playoffs a year or two ago. So they're looking to maybe be that team that knocks off the Adams Central Jets. And then the rivalry that's right down the road in South Adams is the other team that had some success here a few years ago. And can that now come back? Now they got the turf in, it's been in for 1 full year now, and it's going to be a situation now. Can they be a team that can build upon their successes over the years and go challenge a team like Adams Central and counter their 7 men on offense with a returning defense that can go up against that specialty offense that can move the ball at will?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's the big key is that, these rivalries that have gone a long time and just the ability. I mean, Bluffton a year ago, 4 straight losses to end the year after a 6-0 start. So, I think it has to have been a kind of that turn the page scenario this season where, all right, just regroup and see. So, it looks like they're going to be strong and South Adams, Grant Moser now being there 11 years, and he's got 80 wins there. So they find ways to get it done and to find a really good, and sometimes it takes, and this, this regular season can stack up against you real quick, and you find yourself like in Adams Central was 3-5 at the end of the regular season, and then they get on this roll. But I think that's a testament to the competition that is played in the ACAC. That it's tough that at the end of the day, you can have a couple teams that go really far out of that conference in the postseason tournament. And really in the last 10 years, we've seen Woodland make it to state. We've seen Adams Central make it several times. South Adams has made it down to Lucas Oil. So, that conference is really strong, especially amongst the small schools that play. And that's always a fun conference to watch. And I'm sure we'll be following a lot of those teams this fall as well.
Yeah. Well, we've got a few more minutes here, so let's do this. You're going to give me who you think is going to win it in all 3 of those conferences. Who is your top team in the Summit Athletic Conference?
I will go Carroll.
Okay. In NE8.
I will pick East Noble again.
And the ACAC.
Man, it's like Adams Central easy. Let's go surprise with South Adams.
Okay, I'll give you that. And I wouldn't have faulted you if you said Adams Central. But if I had to look at the SEC, I think Snyder's the team to beat with a dark horse possible of Bishop Dwenger.
Yeah.
In the NE8, I think it's East Noble if they stay healthy at quarterback. That's when they could, that may be their biggest thing is keeping that Biddle kid healthy because he's such a phenomenal player. Yeah. And I just don't see anybody right now beating Adams Central with 7 of 11 on offense. Like I said, that scares me, let alone any coach that's going up against them this year. But I do think we've got a great year in front of us. Yeah. Again, we will be with you each and every week on Thursday evening at 7:00, I believe, is when we did it. I have to refresh my memory, but we'll get it out on Thursday evening, and we'll have more announced about that. Remember, our game this week is Leo versus Lures from Leo High School. 6:00 pregame, 7:00 kickoff with me and Brett Rump. But for now, Eric, I think it's time to move to the week 1. And I'll see you Friday night.
We'll see you Friday night out at Leo. Looking forward to it. Say hi if you come out to Leo. We'll be there with the 1380-10 and our crew, and we'll be all over Northeast Indiana all season long. Let's get things rolling, Coach.
Yep, let's go. It's time to get started. And for Doot, I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith. This has been Upon Further Review. We'll see you next Thursday night.